This is DFS Chan coming to you here on January 16th to talk about the League of Legends DFS slate. We have a very high prize pools today, which I'm very proud of. I mentioned this on the other day that we have 10K to first main GPP, but also the Triumphant Warrior, $333 GPP. That is I think, 100 entries allowed. So I am excited about where this is heading. And, hopefully, we feel responsible to fill those contests as well. I'm hoping that's the case. And we hope to keep this momentum going in terms of, good prize pools for DFS for League of Legends. So for tonight's slate, we have a 2-game slate. It's a pretty lame slate. That's a 2-gamer. It's kind of hard to kind of differentiate your lineups. There will be a lot of dupes. I guarantee there will be dupes for the winner of the main GPP. So that is just how it's gonna go. I think DK, DraftKings just doesn't know enough about League of Legends DFS formats and the variabilities and so forth. So hopefully they keep these same prize pools when there are, LCK, LPL slates. And then I have also requested the customer service or their esports department to maybe mix up the LEC and the LCS slates because they happen at the same time over weekends. And hopefully they do that, and then we'll have some more options and variabilities and so forth to be able to kind of differentiate your bills and so forth. So yeah, let's dive into the 2-game slate. Let me share my screen here and do this right, because last time I did not. So let's do that real quick. All right. So we have, I think you guys can see this now. All right, so we have a 2-game slate. I will go through the odds and so forth. I think it's important to go through the roster changes this early in the season. This is the season opener. This is the season opener for these for the LCK as the league overall, and then also for these 4 teams. We have DRX, Nongshim Red Force going against each other. And then we have a marquee matchup in Genji versus T1. So that's going to be an interesting one, I think. I mean, if you have been following League of Legends for a while, or if you have been playing League of Legends DFS, I think this is an exciting first couple matchups, at least as exciting as it can get for a two-game slate, rather, right? So because we don't have like a T1 against another, inferior team. We actually have 2 good solid matchups, pretty evenly skilled, I think, between both, teams and the respective matchups. Like we have DRX and Nongshim Red Force, who are projected to finish in the bottom 3 or 4 of the LCK this season. So they're 2 bad teams going against each other. And then Genji T1, as you guys know, are really good teams. And for those of you who may not know, who maybe just started playing League of Legends DFS this year, T1 is the reigning world champions. They won the Worlds Tournament, which is the ultimate pinnacle you can get as a team for a League of Legends team, in the world. But and then they also re-signed all 5 players: Zeus, Owner, Faker, Gumayushi, and Keria. So T1 is actually pretty stacked. I mean, they are returning all 5 starters who, together won the World's Tournament. But often there is like a Super Bowl hangover if an NFL team goes to Super Bowl and wins it the next season. They come out flat in their season opener and so forth. That can happen for T1 as well. I mean, that's just like in any competitive sport, including esports. So we'll see how that pans out. But I do think the fact that I think this is kind of how I'm thinking about it. The fact that T1 actually participated in some of the casual, I think it was like a casual tournaments in Germany and then also in China during the off season. Maybe it just won in Germany, but the Red Bull tournament, which is like more of just a casual tournament to interact with fans and so forth. But they still played somewhat competitively. I know they've been participating in scrims and so forth. So I think T1 will be ready to go. I don't think they'll come out flat, and they also just picked up their old head coach, Coma. So that's going to be an interesting addition for this team as well. I think that only makes them stronger. They already have an identity, having won the Worlds last year. I'm sure they'll continue, but also continue to adapt and so forth. And I'll talk about the patch, the new patch in the game. You can see here 14.1 version of it for week 1. I'll talk a little bit about this, how this could impact some of these teams and some of the players and the way that they would like to play. I think that is crucial to understand, to kind of pick a game winner and kind of analyze, accordingly. So that's about T1. They're returning all the starters, and then Genji, their opponent, is an underdog technically by Vegas odds. But they brought on Kenyon, and then Lehens, who used to be a support for Genji a couple of years ago, but he has returned to his old team. But he's not playing against his old AD carry who was there, who was ruler, but now pays, is in there at AD carry. He's gonna have to get used to Lehens sometimes aggressive support style. I think that will actually mesh pretty well together. I think Pace sometimes has shown that tendency as well. It's I like Pace quite a bit. I think he is one of the top 80 carries now in the LCK. So we'll see how that goes. And as you guys know, Chovy has been there for a long time, and he is probably a model of consistency. I do think he's better than Faker in terms of like skills and individual skills. So we'll see how that goes. And Keen and Kenyon additions, I think they form the new super team in Gen G. Keen is obviously known as one of the top laners, top laners in the LCK. And he's been that for a while, for a long time. I think he is finally fed up with playing on bad teams, and finally signed with Gen G, giving it a try to win the championship, also the world championship. So we'll see how that pans out. But I just want to talk a lot more about Kenyon's addition here, which is it's going to be very critical, I think. Kenyon is a good jungler. I mean, he's a great jungler. He is probably one of the top junglers in the world. He just had a bad team, I think, on D plus Kia. I know they have Showmaker and all that, but they just had a bad team and team chemistry. I think the fact that he is just not also not a personable player, at least, or teammate, from what I heard, it's not going to pan well. And I think there were some talks about miscommunications already during the scrims. I think it's going to take some time to get used to that for the team. They'll just have to find their own identity, and enough players on the team are adaptable. I think Chovy is willing to, do whatever it takes for the team to win. But I do think Canyon, and then along with Pays and Lehens, that's gonna take some time to gel, I think. So I think that will be an interesting time for the at least during the first few weeks for Genji to kind of explore and and kind of figure out their identity. I don't think they'll be good right away. I mean, they'll be good in terms of individual skills and so forth, but in terms like mid to late game team fights. So we'll see how that pans out, and that's where T1 excels truly. Um, so I have T1 winning this matchup, but I'll go into that a little bit further when I talk about the patch notes. And then the next matchup is DRX versus Nongshim Red Force. Like I said, two bad teams. And then it's an interesting one. If you follow my tweet today, You can see who's starting and who might start for Nongshim Red Force, and that's another thing for LCK. For those of you who are new, and for those of you who are old playing DFS, League of Legends DFS, like you guys know, LCK sometimes starters will not be confirmed or announced at least 1 hour before, not until 1 hour before the first game, or the game time rather. So we will get confirmation on the confirmed starters for DRX and Nongshim Red Force, and that's especially important because Nongshim Red Force, like in the mid lane, we're not 100% sure who's starting yet. I haven't dug deep into that yet, but maybe they have posted it in the last hour or so. But a couple hours ago, when I last looked, I didn't see anything. I presume that Fiesta is gonna start at mid lane for Nongshim Red Force, but uh, but I wouldn't count on it. Like I think I think it's like a 90-10 that Fiesta he's gonna start rather than call me. But so I mean that's some so I'll talk about that, right? Like and early in the season, we just never know who is going to start over who. And then throughout the season, we don't know who's going to replace somebody, depending on how they look out there on the Summoner's Rift. But Nongshim Red Force, they have returned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, they are returning a lot of players. So Call Me is the only one that's kind of new. He has been called up from their academy, or whatever equivalent to the minor league team for Nongshim Red Force, their affiliate. So Call Me has been promoted from that academy team to the LCK level team now, or I guess they call it a challenger team. So from the challengers level to the main level now, the highest level of competition. So I think that's only gonna help Fiesta to kind of feel the pressure to play well and so forth. And I think that's gonna help Fiesta quite a bit as long as he starts. Now, in terms of the fact that they have 4 players returning, I think that's really good. I mean, I think in terms of continuity, continuity is the king early in the season. Continuity with an identity, right? I think some teams kind of like late in the season last season kind of lost their identity, kind of tried out different players, different methods, kind of trying out new things by the general manager and so forth for that team. But Nongshim, actually stuck together. They had an identity, even though I think they're just individually inferior in terms of skills compared to other teams. So maybe that's I mean, that was the sole reason why they lost a lot of games. They just kind of happened to suffer in the early game, in a lot of the games they played in. But here, like going up against a bad team in DRX, and I'm not 100% positive that any of these players on DRX is better than their counterparts on Nongshim. Maybe Rascal and maybe Teddy and Pleta. So I think Nongshim's continuity, the fact that they have 4 starters returning, I think it's going to be great. That's a great positive factor for me to choose Nongshim. And on the other hand, DRX, as you can see, we have a lot of called up players. We have Sponge at jungle and Setab at mid, and then Pleta at support. Now, these players have played, maybe Setab and Pleta, maybe not Sponge. Some of these players have played at the LCK level when I think some of the players for DRX tested positive for COVID back in the days. If you remember those days. um, so they have some experience, but minimal at best. Now they're being called up from their challenger level team to the main squad here. And like I said, Rascal is the only returning starter for this team. So it's a new team. Like there's no other way to put it. Now Rascal is probably a little bit better than Dean, their counterpart in the top lane. Now, Sponge is a big question mark. As you guys know, I put a lot of emphasis in the jungling player, jungling position, and jungling metrics. Now, I took a look at jungle metrics here for. Let me see if you guys can see this. Yeah. As you guys can see, we see Sponge right here. He is kind of in the middle in terms of EGPM metric that I look at. So kind of like middle of the pack jungler or player amongst the junglers at the LCK Challenger level last year. So not very impressive. But at the same time, this is not a dispositive factor in terms of evaluating how good that jungler is, because this number can be affected by many different factors. For example, how that team had performed back in the 2023 summer split. So, but just comparatively, he his metrics are not that impressive, as you can see. GD10, XBD10, kind of in the negative, mediocre. Kill participation and kill share as well, not very impressive. 73%, which is kind of on average, I think, as you guys can see. And then kill share, like he's kind of toward the bottom, or in the middle rather, I guess. So kind of middle of the pack. I don't know if he is an upgrade. For DRX, so we'll see. I mean, I think Sylvie's gonna play better than Sponge. Now, like I said, as you guys can see, like I like Nongshim in this matchup, even though they're an underdog. I like the continuity for Nongshim, and I think Nongshim actually will be a pretty popular underdog to pick tonight. Even though it's a two-gamer, I think all the underdogs will be played. Their ownership will be somewhat north of probably 15-20% still. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think that's kind of what I wanted to go through in terms of talking about the players. Now, in terms of talking about the patch notes, I have my notes here. I don't know if I can share that actually or not, but just real quick, I'll talk about the patch for a few minutes. Patch 14.1. As you guys may know, the whole map, the entire map has changed. Not completely, but significantly. Significantly enough, there's a lot more space in the mid lane. Maybe I'll show you guys. I think it's critical to understand. So yeah, this is a good one. So as you guys can see, the mid lane has gotten much wider and bigger. It's gonna be very hard to gank for the junglers, to gank top lane and the mid lane because of the map changes. Now, in terms of how that impacts the players and also DFS, I think it's gonna have a big impact. I think it's gonna have a big impact in terms of top and mid laning phase. I think the top laners and the mid laners will be asked more to do independently. I think the jungler, instead of focusing in the top lane and the mid lane, where it's gonna be hard to make a play, I think that all the junglers, most jungling plays will be made in through the bottom lane, where the AD carry and support is. So how that affects DFS, I like the fact, I think it's gonna have an impact so that jungling, AD carry, and support players, team synergy, are going to be very, very critical on this patch. And I think that also increases the upside for the AD carry compared to the mid laner. So I do think generally, on average, AD carry will score higher than the mid lane. And then also, I think the ceiling for the AD carry is going to be higher, much higher than mid lane. Now, in terms of early team fights that this patch can have an impact on, I think there will be more early team fights. I will smash the total over/under kills for the LCK matchups that are generally low right now. I think the DRX Notion Red Force is set at 22. I will smash over on that number before the market catches up to it. And that's a good time for me to talk about the TrueDFS write-up that I do daily after this video that I post on the premium section for TrueDFS, where I will be sharing my favorite bets. I am so far 5-2 with 4-2 so far through the LEC slates, 3 days of worth of LEC slates. So 4-2 is pretty good. So I hope to continue doing so well. And then also I share my top plays and top stacks on the TrueDFS channel and write up. So feel free to go check those out if you want to. But also I'm open to answering any questions. So I just wanted to share the roster updates, my matchup analysis, and also the patch notes, how that could have a huge impact on the DFS side of things and the players themselves on the League of Legends map. So I hope that was enough information. I don't want to keep this video too long, but I just wanted to share that with y'all. But if you have any questions, let me know. Like I said, the write-up will be on TrueDFS. I am available on YouTube, Twitter, and Discord, TrueDFS channel. Until then, I hope you guys put some entries in the main GPP, both the main one, $15 one, and also the $333 one. Hopefully we fill those so that we can keep these prize pools going. And I hope you guys win. And like I said, until then, I like Nongshim in that first matchup and then also T1 in the second matchup. Hopefully that was enough for you. Last thing is the kill upside. Yeah, I mean, I think Genji T1 have a higher kill upside. So I'll go with that. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Have a good one.